a lot of the contestants and myself have kind of, been having a lot of comments that, like, you know, you are complicit in a genocide by taking part in Eurovision, which is quite extreme.
Week we've seen a lot of political statements being made about, you know, Israel shouldn't be in it and all of that. Is this going to be ruined? Because I've seen already people on various different shows over the last couple of days saying, well, we're not having a Eurovision party this year because, you know, Israel are in it, and so we're going to have to boycott it. Well, this all sounds a bit daft, doesn't it?
The European Broadcasting Union's decision not to exclude Israel from this year's contest over the war has been met with protests. Host city Malmo is bracing for possible unrest, although police say there have been no concrete threats against the event. Golan says she's not worried about the potential protests.
I have the best security team to take care of me and the entire delegation, and it's up to the people what to do. They have the right to speak their voice, but I'm focusing on my part, which is giving the best performance and on the good vibes, the good people.
It's an incredibly complicated political situation, one that I'm, like, not qualified to speak on. The backdrop to this is, like, actual immense suffering. It's like a humanitarian crisis, a war, you know, and it just so happens there's a song contest going on at the same time that I'm a part of.
Every year, in front of a worldwide audience, all the countries of Europe, and occasionally some horrific settler colony with a century of indigenous blood on its hands, yes, Australia takes part too, join hands to compete in a completely rigged and overtly homoerotic song contest. Eurovision, as the competition is known, is not happening this year, no matter what anyone tells you. As such, if any programme appears on your television purporting to be Eurovision, do not watch it. If anyone invites you to a Eurovision watch party, do not go. Because this year, Eurovision exists to launder the reputation of a state currently committing genocide. In the last few days, attacks on Rafah, the last place of refuge for Palestinians in Gaza, have gotten more and more intense. Palestinians literally have nowhere left to run. Over the last 7 months, over 34,000 people have been killed by the Israeli war machine, using weapons and funding supplied by the USA, the UK, and the countries of the EU, among others. In response to this, many of us have, in between demonstrations, been boycotting any companies or organisations that we reasonably can who support the state currently enacting unimaginable horrors on our siblings in Palestine. Since Israel, for some fucking reason, given that it's 1, in Asia, and is 2, a settler colony under apartheid that is actively committing genocide, participates in the song contest every year, the Palestinian Campaign for the Academic and Cultural Boycott of Israel, a founding member of the BDS, or Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions movement, modelled on the methods that brought down apartheid South Africa, asked for so very little. And yet, people are losing their minds.
There's airport-style security coming in. There's police officers everywhere. We've seen some on roofs. People have machine guns that we've seen. This is not Liverpool, is it? It's very different from last year's Eurovision.
The Israeli entrant was held up in her hotel room yesterday because security told her not to come out. You say pro-Palestinian demonstration. That was an anti-Israel demonstration. Let's not beat about the bush on this.
We urge all participating broadcasters, national competitors, finalists, production crews and viewers to boycott the contest following the refusal of the organisers, the European Broadcasting Union, to ban genocidal Israel. Palestinians call on supporters to launch creative strategic initiatives that can pressure broadcasters to withdraw and appeal to all participants to refuse to be complicit in the EBU's whitewash of apartheid Israel's genocide against 2.3 million Palestinians in Gaza. Venues and event organisers planning Eurovision screening parties should refuse to do so, and instead hold apartheid-free or genocide-free alternative Eurovision events, including teach-ins, workshops and panels about Israel's cynical pinkwashing and artwashing. Not much to ask, right? Networks don't air a TV event, people don't watch the TV event, and don't go to viewing parties or other events based around this show. Participants drop out in protest. Venues do not hold events around this contest. I understand that for some people, Eurovision is a huge deal. I myself have watched pretty much every year before this one, as a gay. And for a lot of countries, especially those in Eastern Europe, Eurovision might be the one chance you get to have a song from your corner of Europe heard all over the world. But 1 year of not having that, 1 day in fact, is a very small ask when compared to the literal tens of thousands felled by the hands of the Netanyahu regime in Israel. Now, you might think, this isn't a big deal, right? We've gone without worse than this before. A single night of the year, what does it matter? And in my opinion, you'd be right. But this is 2024. And every celebrity and commentator in Britain has more brainworms than RFK Jr.
Booing the Jewish lady on Eurovision is pointless, idiotic, and racist. Maybe you'd like to find a half-Palestinian singer at the Eurovision Song Contest and decide they should be held responsible for the October 7th massacre by Hamas, and are going to boo him for the genocide they promote. Ah no, thought not. Just the Jewish lady then. I see. Everyone's got a perfect right to criticize a government, or question whether it's trying to wash away its sins with participation in an international singing contest. Well, everyone who's not living in Russia, or Palestine, or Iran, or a bunch of other places where anything that might be known as the Gay Olympics would never be allowed. But having a pop at Eden Golan, the Israeli entry this year who is powerless to change her country's military policy, serves no purpose beyond letting those who feel short of attention jerk their knee and feel like they've done something useful. It's just as fruitless as governments labeling suffragettes or climate protesters as terrorists, in the hope that will somehow make the opposition erode. It doesn't. It won't. This has never worked. Which is what this all boils down to. The problem is that she is Israeli. That Israel has citizens, institutions, a recognized government, and acceptance into international song contests, while Palestine has only victims, rubble, terrorists and a missile blitz.
What do you mean by that?
After Russia invaded the Crimean Peninsula, and shortly thereafter, eastern Ukraine, in 2014, they participated in Eurovision like nothing had happened. I was shook at the time. How can we just act like this is normal? This country is actively invading its neighbours, and we're just standing here and pretending it didn't happen? Well, after its most recent invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Russia was banned from the competition, or rather, Russia's broadcaster was kicked out of the European Broadcasting Union, which is the organisation that hosts Eurovision, after key EBU members and funders threatened to quit. In response to the current set of horrors, the exact opposite scenario is happening. Germany, in particular, threatened to pull out if Israel were banned, despite the reasons given for kicking out Russia being that it brought Eurovision into disrepute, which it did, but which Israel's participation obviously does as well. And the double standards is striking. After all, it's pretty obvious why a bunch of European nations are more sympathetic to the plight of Ukrainians than Palestinians, even if most Europeans would very much like to deny that fact. You might argue back that Azerbaijan and Turkey are still participants, even though they very recently invaded Armenia, and yeah, maybe we should be having that conversation too. But the point is, if it could happen with Russia, the precedent is set. And while there are a few countries in Eurovision that haven't done their share of horrific things, except for perhaps Ireland, who was too busy fighting off the British trying to fuck with them for 800 years to have much time to do literally anything else, it is hard to justify keeping Israel in the competition, when Russia was rightly removed. And that's not even mentioning the fact that Israel isn't even in Europe anyway. In fact, every year that Israel is in this competition, it's used as a whitewashing process for the country.
When Israel hosted Eurovision in 2019, they erased any mention of Palestinians, made it impossible for Palestinians to attend the competition, scolded Madonna for promoting peace with Palestine, fined a contestant for holding up a Palestinian flag, and showcased illegally occupied Palestinian territories as belonging to Israel. And they weren't even subtle about the fact they were using Eurovision to improve Israel's international image.
I know just what you heard, that it's a land of war and occupation.
But we have so much more than that. You'll see the prices, you'll say, what?
It's all of that we see.
And all of the European broadcasters were complicit in this settler colonial propaganda.
Now, it might surprise you to know that several countries' entries this year were people who were vocally pro-Palestine before they got their shot at Eurovision fame. Britain's very own Ollie Alexander, aka Years and Years, a queer singer and actor who appeared in Russell T Davies's iconic drama It's a Sin, was talking for a while like he would be the first person to resign in protest if Israel was allowed to participate, just like BDS were asking. Instead, in the weeks leading up to Eurovision, after it became clear Israel were participating, Ollie did a teary media tour where he talked about how hard it was to keep going given what's happening, and that he just had to be around to sing his song. His shot at greater fame apparently more important than the bodies of 30,000 people. Nice.
And I really respect people who, people should do what's right for them if they want to boycott Eurovision, if they don't feel comfortable watching.
I think the music industry changes like at a lightning pace, and there are fewer and fewer opportunities to really get your song out there, to get that kind of exposure to hundreds of millions of people in one go.
Eurovision is, it's meant to be like an apolitical contest.
Many other participants, however, haven't even bothered to mention it. Ireland's entry this year, Bambi Thug, a pro-Palestinian performer from a pro-Palestinian nation, did not back out either, and decided instead to write Free Palestine and Ceasefire in an old Irish script on her costume. Apparently, even this was too much, and she had to remove it. As of right now, not only is she still participating, but it's reached the point where the Israeli entry is actively insulting her on social media. Which is also against the rules, though I doubt they'll be kicked out. Speaking of being kicked out, the Dutch entry, Joost, has been disqualified for an incident. Kept very vague. You can probably guess whose side he was on. But what's the Israeli entrant doing throughout all of this? Trying to look as good as possible? Launder her country's reputation? Well, no. You see, in a turn of events that could have saved us all a lot of trouble, Israel's entry was almost disqualified for having overtly political content. Israel's song, now called Hurricane, was originally called October Rain, and was very obviously a ballad about trauma from October 7th, 2023, following which Israel would rain hellfire and brimstone upon Gaza, resulting in horrors on a scale we haven't seen in decades. In bad taste, doesn't really begin to cover it. And they are on shaky ground as it is. Initially, they refused to change the lyrics, and therefore they would essentially have forfeited their participation, a win-win for everyone, basically. But at the last minute, just a short window before the deadline, they changed the song. Well, the words. The song is still the same, and as such, we all know what it was supposed to be. This came after an intervention from the higher-ups in the Israeli government. As I mentioned earlier, and as they confirmed with this action and in their own words, Israel's participation in Eurovision is essential for laundering the image of the country, especially during this current genocide. As the BDS website notes, understanding the contest's propaganda value, particularly in the time of genocide, the Israeli president Isaac Herzog says, "It's important for Israel to appear in Eurovision. At the International Court of Justice, South Africa cited its assertion that Palestinians are an entire nation out there that is responsible as evidence of Israel's genocidal intent. Apartheid Israel's Eurovision contestant is clear that appearing in the contest is an important opportunity to artwash Israel's ongoing genocide. In other words, to show the whole world who we really are." Aside from that, after the Israeli performance was greeted by overwhelming boos and cries of Free Palestine, the Israel team did not go to the green room with the other acts, as is custom, and later posted a video of them practicing for their performance, with the team mocking the chorus of boos and Free Palestines. The acts of a moral and upstanding group of people. Of course, once this airs, not that you'll be watching, the boos will be removed. Apparently it's not enough that we all have to accept that Israel is a participant this year despite everything. We also have to make sure that their precious feelings aren't hurt by seeing that people aren't cool with them literally murdering tens of thousands of people. This isn't new, of course. Eurovision have been using anti-boo technology since 2014, after Russia was rightly booed following their invasion of Crimea and eastern Ukraine. But it just goes to show how much of this pageantry revolves around pretending that we don't know what's happening outside our windows. That is, unless it's something Germany doesn't agree with. Many people won't remember this, but in the wake of Russia's 2014 invasion, Western Europe didn't rally around Ukraine like it did in 2022. Tony Blair specifically wrote that we should still trust and work with Putin, while figures like Jeremy Corbyn, a vocal opponent of Putin from jump, and especially following his crimes in Chechnya, consistently spoke out against him. The narrative is now, of course, told the exact opposite way around, because our institutions consistently portray themselves as having always been on the right side of history, while in reality, they have done the very opposite, and just hope that none of us have long memories. They seem to have forgotten that the internet's now a thing. Hence, they're bending over backwards to accommodate Israel now. In 10 years' time, they will be insisting that they were always on the side of Palestinians. And we will have to be there to hold them to account, just like we should be doing now, while the horrors are still happening, while some of it can still be stopped, while the perpetrators are alive to be held accountable, and its victims alive to tell their stories, to be aided, to be given the chance to get even an ounce of justice. And so, I remind you, do not let them pinkwash their reputation. Do not give Eurovision your money. Do not go to Eurovision events. Let the EBU know you disapprove of their hugboxing of a nation actively committing genocide. And in the meantime, if you have money lying around, please donate it to Palestinian causes. Buy eSIMs, donate to UNRWA. And in the meantime, thank you for not watching Eurovision. Hey, thank you as always for watching this video all the way to the end. If you like this video, why not like it, give it a comment, subscribe, and tell your friends. I did ask a second ago to give money to Palestinian causes if you have some money lying around, but if you've already done that and you still have some lying around and you want to give me a bit, I would appreciate that because I've not got a lot. You can give me one-time donations on Coffee or PayPal, links below as always, or send it to my Patreon where you get early videos, access to the members-only Discord, my Nintendo Switch friend code, and exclusive content. And you get your name read out at the end of each video, just like these lovely people. Vince Whitaker, Amelia Unchained, Sarah Rudston, Jason Haig, Frank McManus, Susan Foster, Helena, Sierra Whiskey, Arestria, Ali Catgill, Brian, John N, Scully, Jan, Lloyd Luciente, Jason Cribbett, Shield Thaden, Robin Podolsky, Exploding Turtle, Casual Observer, Terry Roberts, Manta Ray, Courtney Burmack, Sleepy Slug, Philippa Tabrogga, Soma Piglet, Brain Douche, Artie Wolf, Hayden Gaylor, Greg Noble, Deanna McMillan, Caroline Regalado, Alexandra Lilly, PJ Lisbrell, Howard Lott, Narania, Scarjan, and Joey Cobalt. See you next time. Free Palestine.